On today's episode, Toughest Mudder West preview with Jessica Johnson. This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome back to World's Toughest Podcast. It was all I could do to not sing along with the music there at the beginning. I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks and radio as I'm driving, and sometimes I wonder if people ever listen to themselves and be like, man, why are you doing that? What's that about? My name is Will Hicks. Thank you for listening to World's Toughest Podcast. You're listening to the number one rated obstacle course racing podcast in the world because of listeners like you, according to Apple and Amazon. Thank you for those reviews. You are too kind. Today on our show, Jessica Johnson. Jessica is a well-known and beloved member of the community. She won one of the community awards last year at the brunch. We're going to talk about the community awards in a minute. But I talked with Jessica about Toughest Mudder West. She'll be out there pitting. She's run World's Toughest Mudder multiple times, and as well as several Toughest Mudders. She and I did, I don't want to say a full lap, but we did a good part of a lap at Toughest Mudder West last year. Toughest Mudder West last year was the daytime Toughest Mudder. And I remember we talked about the best music to have in your Tough Mudder playlist. And I told her the number one song in my Tough Mudder playlist is Eye of the Tiger. And you know that from Rocky. Dun, 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 dun. And so that's because that's the best song for working out, pre-Tough Mudder or driving onto a Tough Mudder course, or when you're going from your hotel to the venue and as you're pulling onto the site and there's lots of other cars and it's kind of intimidating and you got to get yourself pumped up for it. Eye of the Tiger, first song on the playlist. And then when you're making your playlist, you got to pick the second best song for the playlist. And what's the next best song to put right after Eye of the Tiger? And the answer, of course, is Eye of the Tiger. Dun, 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 dun. But then you have to put the third best song on your playlist. And after you've already played Eye of the Tiger twice, the obvious choice, the next choice for the third song on your playlist is Eye of the Tiger. Dun, 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 dun. Anyway, so that's what Jessica Johnson and I talked about for, 2 or 3 miles at Toughest Mudder West last year. We don't talk about that this year, so you're welcome. Before we start, you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching for World's Toughest Podcast. And as long as you're online on the internet, you should follow the OCR Report also. The OCR Report is the home of our podcast. We also have Overcome and Run and Obscuring Adventures and the OCR Report podcast. So check that out, theocrreport.com. Follow the OCR Report on Instagram. And you can be a part of the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. Let's listen to some iTunes reviews.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars.
Our first review comes from Kevin Evanston in the U.S. Kevin writes, pro tip, don't die. 5 stars. I learned how to not die at WTM. Now I plan to not die. 5 stars. Kevin's talking about our How to Not Die at WTM. I want to say series. It's one episode each year. We talk about how to not die at World's Toughest Mudder. First year, we talked about hydration or overhydration. Second year, we talked about hypothermia. Molly Kenneth is our guest for these shows. She comes on and gives us everyone advice on how to not die. We are scheduled to talk with her again this year before World's Toughest Mudder. Kevin, I'm glad you learned how to not die, and I hope you haven't. Next review comes from Brosecker. That's his Jacob Brosecker from BroCR. Jacob Brosecker writes, BroCR learned stuff. 5 stars. You guys put on a great podcast, amazing content, and I've learned a ton about the race this year. Excited to go out for my first one and learn even more this week. Awesome work, guys. I'm like 90% sure I ran Toughest Mudder Minnesota with Jacob Brosecker. I can't like lock that down to 100%. Here's why. There's 2 guys. BroCR is 2 guys, 2 bros. And I'm pretty sure I met Jacob, but I'll leave 10% in there. Jacob, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Will you be in Vegas this weekend? Let me know. willhicks@gmail.com. And our last review comes from the UK. Hammett23 writes, top podcast, 5 stars. After all the help/advice/guidance and many smiling miles of listening to World's Toughest Podcast whilst training for my first WTM in 2018, I managed 60 miles. I could never have done that without the help I got from the podcasts. The podcast then helped me relive what I went through whilst helping me build on my foundation for the 2019 event. Easy to listen to and brilliant content. Keep up the good work. 5 stars. Ian Jones. Thank you, Ian Jones. I appreciate the kind words. I love hearing from our international or from our non-US listeners. You know, the bulk of our downloads, probably 65%, are from the US, but the rest, Canada, England, Australia, Switzerland, all outside the US. And when those guys come over from outside the US to World's Toughest Mudder, it's a great experience. You see a lot of them in the team category. You can meet them and hang out with them at the bar crawl afterwards. I met with a bunch of guys from the UK last year at the bar crawl after the race. So, Ian, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Hope to see you this year at World's Toughest Mudder. If you'd like to be a part of the show, like Ian Jones, Jacob Brosecker, and Kevin Evanston, you can leave a review on iTunes also. Open the Purple Podcast app on your iPhone or iOS device. Search for World's Toughest Podcast. Click our logo and then scroll down to click Write a Review. How many times have you heard me say that spiel? Click the Purple Podcast button. How many times? Like, I say it pretty much every episode, right? And this is episode 130 or so. You should leave a review. If everyone left a review, I'd stop asking you to leave them. Cross my heart. True story. If everyone left a review listening right now, I don't know who you are, but I know how many of you there are. Leave us a review, Apple Podcasts. If you are not an iOS guy, that's totally cool. You can leave a review on Amazon.com, or you can get a laptop computer and open iTunes and leave a review through there. I would appreciate it. I will read it on a future episode. Quick announcement. We mentioned it last week or last episode. Don't forget that for the first time ever, Tough Mudder headquarters is accepting nominations for the Tough Mudder Community Awards. These are the awards that they give out at the brunch. They have nothing to do with the race itself. They're strictly to recognize members of the community for qualities like fun, mental grit, personal accomplishment, teamwork. There's also a tribe award, and which kind of encompasses all 4 of those. And there's the Tough Mudder Hall of Fame, which is new this year. It doesn't matter to me who you nominate, but what's important is that you make use of the process. Even if you don't nominate someone for all 6 spots, if you nominate 2 spots or 3 spots, this is the first year Tough Mudder has opened this up to the community. And really, if you think about it, maybe it should have been open to the community the whole time to make nominations, right? But I think it's important that Team HQ sees that there is a good showing or a good turnout. I'm saying turnout with air quotes that you can't see for this, because if we don't turn out, if we don't show up and nominate, members of the community, people that are meaningful, who have helped you maybe on a course, maybe they pulled you up an obstacle, maybe they, whatever it is. If we don't nominate those people, this can go away. Like I think it's really important this year. Nominate. So it doesn't matter who has helped you on a course, who has inspired you, whatever it is. I'm not going to put my finger on the scale. I don't want you to vote for who I want you to vote for. I want you to just to vote or to nominate someone. It's not a vote. It's not an election. If everyone votes for the same guy, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win the award. It's a nomination. Team HQ picks the winner. But make a nomination. Let Team HQ know about this person in the community that's done a lot for you, and maybe they'll be recognized at the brunch on Monday. Are you a writer? Do you have writing skill? I don't mean like, oh yeah, I thought about writing, but like, are you good at writing? I'm looking for 2 or 3 people to join us on the OCR Report website primarily as writers. If OCR and writing are 2 of your interests and skills, I would love to talk with you and read some of your writing. Shoot me links to a few samples of your writing, willhicks@gmail.com, with OCR Report writer in the subject line, and I will reach out to you and see if there is a fit. You want to be really good at something? It's very difficult to be the best in the world at anything, right? Like if you want to be the best OCR racer in the world, it's really hard. There's Ryan Atkins, there's Lindsay Webster, there's Nicole Miracle, there's Karen Carlson, the new OCR world champion. There's John Albin. I've just listed like 6 or 8 names, right? One of them is the best in the world. Here's how you become the best in the world at something. You take 2 things that you're good at and you find where they intersect. And that's where you can become the best in the world at it. I'm not the best podcaster in the world, and I'm not the best OCR racer in the world, but we have a pretty good OCR podcast because those 2 interests intersect, and where they meet is where someone can be the best in the world at something. Maybe you're not the best writer in the world, and maybe you're not the best OCR runner in the world, but those 2 interests meet. There's an author, I'm blanking on his name, but he calls that kids' earmuffs idea sex, where these 2 ideas, they come together and they make something better than themselves. So if you're into OCR and if you are into writing, I would love to talk with you about doing some writing with us on the OCR Report. Join our team. Today in our show, Jessica Johnson. I've already talked a lot about Jessica Johnson. She will be out on course at Toughest Mudder West this weekend in Las Vegas with me and maybe with you. Are you going to be there? Let me know. willhicks@gmail.com. Or come up and say, hey, I would love to see you at the race. I will be the one you're probably running past. It's time to talk with Jessica Johnson. Let's go to the phones. Jessica Johnson, thanks for joining the show.
Glad to be here.
Jessica, we're going to talk about Toughest Mudder West in a minute. But first, tell me about your first World's Toughest Mudder.
So I first ran World's Toughest Mudder in 2017. So it was the last year in Vegas.
And how was it for you? How'd you do?
I did 25 miles. Like everybody, I did pretty good for my first 4 laps. I'm a relatively slow one, but, I can charge it through. And so I finished my 4th lap, I think around 1:30 a.m. I had definitely gotten cold. I probably wasn't eating enough. And so I had told my pit I wanted to stop and just try to warm up a little bit. And of course, most people have gotten there. That just spiraled into a mini meltdown. And I sat there crying for 2 hours before they finally got me to go back out for another lap. Tiffany Abb actually got me to go out with her. I think it was probably like 4 a.m. We went out and started our 5th lap and trudged through, found a couple other wayward souls along the way, and finally finished that lap out and decided we were done probably around 10 a.m.
World's Toughest Mudder is no joke. It will bring you to tears. That's not uncommon.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I've seen it and I've done it. Definitely a hard one. And it got pretty cold. It wasn't the coldest year in Vegas, but especially out on it's for people that have done it on the bridge coming back from the penalty for Funky Monkey in the Arctic NMO with no ice. The wind kicked up and just tore through anything you were wearing. It was freezing.
In 2016, a lot of people reached their 50 or 75 mile goals. And so at the start line in 2017, the race directors, they said, we're going to make it harder. We made it harder for you this year. So no complaining. And they did. It was probably the hardest Vegas. I say that. Yeah. I didn't run 2014.
Yeah, I wasn't there in 2014. I was there volunteering in 15, and that was cold. And from what I remember being told, that was the one where they kept you wet pretty much the entire race with the obstacles, and it was the coldest. And I volunteered and pitted again in 16, and then finally ran in 17. Yeah, 16 was warm. It was definitely the warmest year.
You also ran World's Toughest last year in Atlanta, 2018. What did you think about the difference between Vegas and Atlanta?
The weather was definitely a factor. It got colder than it ever got in Vegas. Gear-wise, with warmth, I felt pretty good. I was moving a little bit faster than I was in 2017. But I had my wetsuit and I had a 2-3 zip-up jacket to put over that, but the problem was that was the same size as the wetsuit. So when I did that on my fourth lap, I couldn't breathe like the entire lap. So I decided to call that one too and wait until I didn't need it. So about 12:30, I stayed in the pit and helped other people out, tried to get warm myself, and then went back out when the sun came up.
I don't know if you saw someone posted in the World's Toughest group, the weather, like a long-term weather forecast, and it said lows of 36 for World's Toughest weekend.
That'll be almost 10 degrees warmer than it was last year.
It was so cold, Jessica. Everything was frosting. There was it looked like it wasn't snow. It looked like snow on the ground. It was like frozen dew. It was so cold.
Right at dawn, it looked like a winter wonderland. It was real. I mean, it looked pretty in pictures, but it was definitely freezing. My favorite story I like to tell is that we're finishing that fourth lap. I was with Kim DeVos, and I kept seeing sparkles out of the corner of my eye. And I turned to her and I asked her if I had ice on my eyelashes, and she just said yes. And then we both giggled and kept going. So I had frost on my eyelashes and my eyebrows.
What's your plan for dealing with the cold this year?
I am actually not running Worlds this year. I will be there, though. I am pitting for my buddy Travis. We're going to get him 50, so I'll be nice and toasty warm as I can be in the pit. That's my strategy.
Tell me about 2017 or 2018. What was the highlight or the emotional best part of those races?
For me, one of the things that I look back on with my first one in 2017 is when Tiffany Abb went out, and I went out for our last lap, and we definitely didn't want to be there. But then we found a buddy of ours that was just about to quit. He was having issues, and he literally was like, "Where is a UTV? I want to quit." And we just were like, if we're going, you're going. Like, there's nobody quitting. Like, we're going to walk this thing together. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take. And we pulled him along. And the first obstacle we had to do was Augustus Loop, which was the coldest water on course. And Mike Jones got a picture of us all three just sitting there on the edge of it, just not wanting to go in. And then we finally went in and we made it through together, the three of us. So that was one of my favorite moments, that picture.
You know what? You hear stories about that happening every single year. There is a guy or there are some people that are just in a bad way, and maybe they're hypothermic, maybe they're injured, or not seriously, but enough where they're it's messing with their head. And people come alongside and they either help them finish the lap or help them finish the race, but they once you get them back to the pit, they're fine. They can rest for a while and then come back out and finish the race when they feel better. But when you're out there, they want to quit. And that's a big part of the race, is helping other people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably one of the things I'm better at, not letting other people give up. I don't know so much about myself, but other people, I'm good at making them keep going.
My team found a guy last year. It was I don't know what time of day it was. If it was, I don't even know if it was overnight or not, but he had nothing. He didn't have a wetsuit. He had nothing. And he was just shivering. He could barely say his name. And we were like a mile and a half from the finish line. It was after Kiss of Mud, but before that long walk and the hill and the Mudderhorn at the end of the race. And so we just got him there. And then once he started, getting up the obstacle, we could kind of help him and warm him up that way. But he got it back in, and I think he finished another lap later. So.
Yeah, you got to be prepared. It's hard to tell how it's going to be, but definitely the thing you hear a lot is just like get warm before you get cold. Like make sure you have more gear on than you think you'll need for that lap because it will get cold. You are wet. It's nighttime. Doesn't matter where it is. Almost. It's going to get cold.
I really hope that people heed the lessons of last year because a lot of people, in the past, I tell people like, oh, overnight it turns into a ghost town. Watch, like half these scents will be gone. In 2016, that didn't happen because it was so warm. And then 2017, it did. 2017 made up for it. There was, there was barely anyone left in the morning. And so I hope 2018 rather. So I hope the people, running this year heed that lesson and bring a wetsuit. And yeah, I know you're manly, but bring a wetsuit.
No, yeah, it doesn't matter. 30 under, some people under 50 degrees, it's going to be cold. Like, you got to know your body too. Like, I do run warm. Vegas, last year in Vegas, which was relatively cold, not the coldest, but I was just in frog skin and I was fine. But I knew that Atlanta was going to be colder, so I put on my wetsuit.
You mentioned the problems you had with kind of wetsuit fit once you were out there on the course. Most people have never run in a wetsuit. Like 99% of people have no reason to run in a wetsuit. So it sounds silly, but like try it on and run around your neighborhood and jump in your pool and take this stuff for a test drive before you show up in Atlanta.
Yeah, hose yourself off in your front yard and go run around the block just so you can see how it feels. And when you get it on, it's really tight because I surfed as a teenager and I'm scuba certified, so I know how, I've worn wetsuits before, and it definitely, once you get it wet, it's different. So you got to know how it's going to feel when it's wet, when it's full of water.
Also,
it'll fit better.
Also, and this is kind of a pro tip, is make sure you have someone, like maybe hopefully a friend or a spouse or a loved one around when you're doing it. My wife was out of town once, and I put my kids to bed. And I was like, all right, I can play with my gear. I can get everything figured out. So I got my wetsuit on, and I was trying it on. And, it's kind of a thing like wetsuit pictures right before the race. And I got it on. I was like, all right, awesome. It fits. It's great. And it was a back zipper. And so after I was done with everything, it's like 11 o'clock at night now. I start taking the wetsuit off, but the zipper is stuck and I can't get it unstuck. And I'm all by myself in my house and my kids are asleep and I don't know my neighbors. I'm not going to go knock on their door wearing a wetsuit. I was like, I'm just going to have to go to bed like this. And I guess this is my life now. So I ended up figuring it out, but for like 5 minutes, I was kind of worried.
Did it have the string attached that you could pull it, or was it just a zipper?
No, it had like that string, that long, strap in the back where you can kind of reach behind and pull down. But it was just stuck way up at the top, and I couldn't see it. I'm looking in the mirror trying to like, why is it stuck? What is it stuck on? And it was just kind of like jammed like they get sometimes. But anyway, it took me like 15 minutes to get it off.
Yeah, definitely have a backup plan for getting out of your wetsuit because it can be just as hard as getting in.
So in your World's Toughest Mudder career, what was the lowest part? What was the kind of the low point you reached?
That time when I broke down in 2017, last year in Vegas, I just remember like whimpering, like I was in dry clothes. My pit was taking my stuff off and putting my stuff back on, like my race clothes back on, because they knew I would go out. And everybody else around me had either gotten a little bit of an injury or was taking a break. So we had a big pit crew, or a big area. There was about 10 of us, all from Southern California, that all pit together. and everybody else, or half of them, were taking a nap. And so I just remember as my pit crew's putting on my shoes and putting on, everybody else gets to take a nap. Why can't I? I was so sad that they could sleep and I couldn't sleep. I was just crying there. I don't remember a big low point last year in 2018 in Atlanta. Like, it was cold, but I was okay. Aside from, it was a little hard to breathe because the extra jacket was just too tight on me. But I didn't have a low point, I feel like. Nothing like in 2017.
I kind of feel like 2018 was just kind of like once 5 p.m., 6 p.m. hit, it was just consistent low, like plateau until the race was over.
Yeah. I remember actually last year coming in from my second lap, I hadn't put a wetsuit on. I think I had frog skin. It was just starting to get dark. And Heather Heaton saw me at the finish and just gave me a hug, and I gave Clinton a hug. And I just started crying for no real reason. And Heather freaked out because she thought I was like having a bad moment. And it wasn't that. It was, I remember when we came up from Mutterhorn, there was somebody there, somebody's pit crew, somebody's dad. I don't remember, but he was just, the words of encouragement he was telling everybody just got to me, that everybody is so supportive of everybody else out on course. And then the hugs you get when you come in, I just started crying because it was nice, like the support. I was overwhelmed with the support of it. So it wasn't even a bad moment, but I was crying anyway. There's
no shame in that. Your body is beaten up, your mind is fatigued. It's an emotional race.
Mm-hmm. And I was just like, no, these are happy tears, I promise. Let's go get our wetsuit on.
Let's talk about Toughest Mudder. Toughest Mudder West is this weekend. You and I are looking at the course map for Las Vegas. Las Vegas, like we said, is the past home of World's Toughest Mudder. What do you think about Toughest Mudder returning to Lake Las Vegas?
I think it's awesome. I think it's a great venue. It has the hills to make it tough, but it also has flat land. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. It is October. It's not, middle of November, but you never know because it is a desert. It could be 100 degrees in the daytime and drop below 50 at night or lower. But I'm excited for it to come back. No, I'm not running the toughest course. I'll be there Saturday and Sunday running the Classic. I'm excited to get back out there.
The number one question most people ask when they hear Toughest Mudder is in Vegas, they say, will the cliff be there? What do you think?
Well, it's not on the map, but I love some conspiracy theories, and the course does run right by where the cliff was. And as of last year, the little platform structure was still sitting there off to the side. So I guess we'll just have to find out. TMHQ is notorious for throwing some curveballs in late in the game.
I didn't know that the platform that everyone jumps off of is still there in Vegas.
The part of it, yeah, part of the platform was still there last year.
It's like a year and a half. It's almost 2 years later now since they've used it.
Kind of tucked away on the side. So that's just one of the things that fuels the rumors and most people's hopes, some people's dreads about it being there.
The race director pretty much told me it won't be there. But
yeah. But I wouldn't tell the media either.
Let's talk about the obstacles, and you can kind of talk about how you get through them and some tips for them as we go. It looks like, kind of describe to me what we think where the Mudder Village is going to be.
So the Mudder Village looks like it's going to be in a completely different spot from where it's been in past years and from past Worlds. It looks like it's going to be, for people who've been there before, right where you park. It's actually the first platform where parking usually is. And in past years, it was where the concrete platform the operation was on, and also was it Pandora's Box, I think, was the other year. It had an electrical thing you had to crawl in. So that looks like it's where the village and the start's going to be. So it's a little bit different, but it should be a nice little change for the course. Less walking. I'm assuming from looking at this map, less walking to the village area.
From the parking lot. Yeah, that's a good point.
From the parking lot, yeah.
It's a little tricky looking at the map. Usually they show you the start, the finish, and where the Mutter Village is. The course map is just one big loop. And so we're kind of speculating just based on where the first and last obstacles are. But that's what it looks like to us.
Yeah, because it's also a bunch of obstacles clumped together. You got to think about spectators, and usually for the regular Mutter, electrotherapy is going to be the last obstacle, so it would be in the village. So we are speculating, but that's what it looks like it's going to be.
That's a really good point about electroshock. Yeah, I think you're right. So when you start the course, the first obstacle you come to is Devil's Beard. What is Devil's Beard?
Devil's Beard is just a cargo net. Sometimes two, sometimes different things are thrown in, but a cargo net pinned to the ground that's usually kind of tight. You have to just go underneath and get out the other end. So it's a relatively easy obstacle. Sometimes it takes a little effort if it's tied down real tight, and it depends because there's been a big push in the UK of making it harder and more time consuming. So we'll see if they take a hit from them and make it a little more interesting.
Do you go head first or butt first?
Usually butt first because my hair will get caught and everything. So.
Oh, also headlamps. Be careful, especially during toughest. Your headlamp can get snagged in there real easy.
Headlamps. You gotta watch the headlamp. You might lose a strobe or glow stick if that's what you have. If you have a pack on, a water pack or anything, take it off and hold it to your chest instead of on your back. Otherwise, that will get caught up too.
The second obstacle is Spread Eagle. Tell me about Spread Eagle.
The Spread Eagle is a couple of slack lines they have over a pool of water. And usually there'll be lanes of two kind of close together, and you just kind of have to squat with your legs on either side and scoot yourself or pull yourself. I have seen some people walk it, which is good for you. And, or like with your feet on either one and your hands, and you just kind of like bear crawl almost across it.
I can see somebody doing that at the start of the race, but I can't see somebody bear crawling across after 12 hours.
No, I hope they put a few extra because if there's enough, you can roll. You can roll across it.
I've tried the roll. I don't feel like it saved any energy, though.
No, because at the end, you can't really roll up the little, like, uphill a little bit. So you have to go back around and pull yourself the normal way anyway.
The third obstacle is Pyramid Scheme. Tell me about Pyramid Scheme for toughest.
The Pyramid Scheme is a slick ramp that they have you have to get up. In the regular event, it's usually going to try to build a human pyramid to get people up. But generally, for a toughest or a world toughest, they'll have ropes that can help you get up. You can do it on most people. I can do it on my own with a rope. It's just whether or not the ropes will be short. So sometimes you'll need a boost to get the rope, but once you can get it, you can just kind of walk up.
The most dangerous part of Pyramid Scheme, I think, is climbing down the backside.
Yeah. That would be, it depends on if it's wood, like at the back of Everest, or if it's the metal poles, then you gotta be careful if you're wet. They get really slick.
Yeah, and there's no real trick to it. Just, go down cautiously.
Yeah, slow and steady.
The fourth obstacle is Block Ness Monster. What is Block Ness Monster?
Block Ness Monsters, I think a community favorite. It's 2 blocks in water and they rotate, and generally you have people pushing and someone on the side pulling, and it just kind of rotates and someone holds on, and you got to turn around and grab the other end when you're on the other side to help pull the block down. It's like a counterweight. You got to keep it moving. Otherwise, it takes a whole lot of energy to get moving again.
Yeah, if it's your first time going to Block Ness, just kind of go along with what people are doing, and they'll help you get over. But make sure as you're going over, you turn around and grab the block and pull it down behind you, because then you can help the people that are still on the other side.
100%. That's what a lot of people don't know to do So when I'm on obstacle, I definitely try to coach people as much as I can without sounding mean like I'm yelling at them.
The fifth obstacle is cage crawl. Did I see a video of you doing cage crawl this weekend?
Yes, I love cage crawl. I'm a weirdo. A lot of people, so cage crawl is a pit of water, and they cover it with chain link fence, and there's very little room in between the water and the chain link fence. So you have to lay on your back with your head in the water and just pull yourself along the chain link. I love it. I'm weird, I think, because it covers your ears usually, and you have to go backwards. You can't see where you're going. So it's kind of a little bit of a sensory deprivation, which I just think is cool. But I can move through it pretty quickly. There's a new level up, which probably won't be on toughest, where they make you go under a little bit of plexiglass. You just plug your nose, you're fine. But it can be a problem for people that are claustrophobic, and they can freak out a little bit. But the cages do pop up, and it's in about 3 feet of water, so you can stand up.
I think cage crawl is it's a great example of a mental obstacle, because really there's no danger. You just have to relax and stay calm and pull yourself along. There's no danger at all, but it feels like there's a ton of danger. Definitely.
And sometimes they like to overfill it, so you just got to watch out if you're the first ones going through.
Yeah, it'll make it a little bit harder, but it's the same amount of danger. It's just messing with your head. So
yeah, you can plant your feet on the ground and you can push up. They're on hinges, to like a door almost. You can, like a bar door. You can just push it up and get out of there if you're not feeling it.
After cage crawl is in the kind of a valley at the base of a hill, and then you walk up this hill, and at the top of the hill is Ladder to Hell.
Ladder to Hell is another one of the straightforward obstacles. It's just a structure they build, a wood structure that you climb up. It's got like 2x12s on it, or maybe something bigger, I don't know. But usually about 3 or 4 runs, and you just climb up and over. Can be a little bit of a problem with heights, and you just gotta watch your step and your grip, because it's a bit wet, which it shouldn't be at that point too bad. It can get a little slippery and muddy, but pretty straightforward up and over obstacle.
After a few laps, I tend to cramp up. If I'm going to cramp up, it's going to be at this obstacle at the top.
And they always like to put it at the top of a hill, so prime cramping time for those calves.
So you head down the hill, and the 7th obstacle is Funky Monkey.
So Funky Monkey, if it's in the current state, is monkey bars at an incline to a rotating wheel, and then to 2 or 3 more wheels, depending on where you're at, that swing you across, and then to a straight bar. And it's all usually over water. So big grip obstacle for a lot of people.
We haven't talked about it, but Funky Monkey is definitely going to be one of the penalty obstacles.
Yes, definitely. We hope. We hope, but yeah, I'm sure 100% there'll be some sort of penalty for Funky Monkey
if you fail the obstacle.
If you do not complete the obstacle, usually you have to. It's still, which people don't like to do. If you don't pass it, you have to get wet, and even if you don't attempt it and you just want to go through the penalty, you will probably have to still get in the water.
You know, there's no shame in that game either. Like, if sometimes you need to save your upper body strength for the must complete obstacles like Berlin Walls or Loch Ness Monster, or whatever. If you want to save that upper body strength, some people choose I'm not going to spend it on Funky Monkey when I can just take a penalty and run a little bit more. I need that upper body strength for skid marked or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I mean, and if they still choose to, if you choose not to do the obstacle and they still make you get in the water, you kind of can ease yourself into the water, so you're not getting your entire body wet. Whereas if you fall, you're going to completely submerge and get your entire body wet, which can be a strategy.
Yeah, there's no graceful way to fall off Funky Monkey. It's always a dramatic sideways, legs flailing, Blah.
Yep.
After Funky Monkey is a long run, and then the 8th obstacle is Augustus Gloop.
So Augustus Loop, you get into a pool of water, and there are tubes and a ladder system inside the tube that you crawl up. And while you're doing that, there's a fire hose spraying down on you. So you will get completely wet on this one.
This one, I don't think is a hard one so much as it does, you do have to do the work of climbing up, but it's more like wet again, I got to climb again. And it's hard, but it's not, insurmountable.
No, it's not hard. I'm not a super, strong person, but it's real easy for me. It's just a little ladder to go up. I don't have the claustrophobic thing. Some people don't like being in the tube, but it is just like a half tube now, so it's less of an issue. But yeah, the water can be pretty. It can be pretty hard. They can up the pressure of that nozzle. It was pretty hard in Sonoma this weekend.
The only trick I know for that is to tuck your chin down as you're climbing so that you can. It's easier to breathe.
Yeah, don't look up.
So now that you're already wet at Augustus Gloop, you have a short run. The 9th obstacle is Arctic Enema.
Arctic Enema is just a big dumpster bin. They fill with water and ice. And in the middle of it, there's a wall with usually some tires. And you just have to go under. So in, under, and out. Very, very cold. But just run for a second and you'll be fine.
When you go through it, do you kind of freeze up? Is your brain, or are you able to kind of stay calm through it?
Nope. I used to hate this obstacle. I used to actually say I prefer to do electroshock than Arctic Enema, but I have learned to love it over my years of Tough Mudder. And actually, I am one of those people that will try to make people play rock, paper, scissors with me to get out.
That's something a lot of the community members do at on Sunday Fun Day, maybe. There, you go through Arctic Enema.
Regular event, not a toughest. Regular events only.
So after you get under the log, you're at the exit to it. You and whoever you went through, you do paper, rock, scissors. The winner of paper, rock, scissors gets to get out. The loser has to play with the next person to come through. And sometimes it's just like someone it's their first Tough Mudder, and you're like, "Hey, play paper, rock, scissors with me," and they're like, "No, I'm leaving," and so you can't get out until you beat somebody at paper, rock, scissors. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a fun game.
The only trick I know for Arctic Enema is it doesn't matter how long you stare at it; it will not get warmer. So don't think about it. Don't look at it. Just get in and go. Like, you're not going to make it. It's not going to get any better.
The faster you get in and get under, the faster you can get out. So that's it. It's the seconds of your life.
So now that you'll
warm up, I promise.
So now that you're already wet and soaking, they're going to keep you wet. The next obstacle is hydrophobia.
Hydrophobia is not too bad. It's another like one of those long, short dumpster bins, and they put water in it. And the big drainage tubes, the black tubes, and the tubes are slightly, maybe about halfway, maybe not so much, submerged in the water. You just have to go through the tube, and sometimes they sink a little, and so you just got to get through it. It's pretty straightforward, not very long of an obstacle.
Does this one mess with your head at all?
Not, excuse me, not mine. But for anyone who's claustrophobic, I can see them getting a little uncomfortable. But what I like to do is get in there and kind of push my feet against the side and push in the feet, so you kind of slide through about halfway, and then you don't have as far to crawl, so it gets you through it. Then you kind of create a tidal wave, but that's the other person's problem, not yours.
This is the only obstacle that really messes with my head still. It's probably totally safe, right? It probably is. I can't imagine them putting an unsafe obstacle out there. But if for whatever, I don't know how those pipes are suspended, so like the water is level, stays where it is. But if something happened and those pipes started sinking and you're in the middle of that tube, I don't think you have a chance.
I see what you're saying. And I do not know how the suspension is underneath there. I have never tried to look, but yeah, that could be a concern. I would definitely be concerned if it were to somehow snap and you're in there.
Now it's probably totally
It'd probably be
safe,
a little hard.
like cage crawl, right? It's probably totally safe. And maybe if I knew like how the magic happens, it wouldn't stress me out. Like cage crawl doesn't stress me out at all anymore, right? So maybe it's good that I don't know,
Yeah.
and it just kind of has this fear in me. But I think about that every time I go through there. I'm like, I just need to get in and I need to get out.
Yeah, somebody brought that up, but I think I just don't think about it.
The 11th obstacle right after hydrophobia is entrapment.
Entrapment is an electric obstacle. You crawl underneath, like it's like a kiss of mud a little bit, but they're like long, tight straps instead of barbed wire. And then there's a couple, they're like white. I don't know what kind of material it is, but they're white straps, and they're hanging down every and now and again, and they are electrified. And the top straps that are stretched out across the top of it are also electrified. So you have to stay low, because if you hit them with your butt or your shoulder or your head, then you can get zapped.
You're right. The straps are weird looking. They look like they're nylon. But if you stay low enough, you won't get. You can make it through without getting shocked. At least you usually can. At World's Toughest Mudder, we'd see these straps and we'd get through without getting shocked. And so we'd look back at it and we're like, are those even on? Like, is this a real obstacle? Or are we just kind of, are they just messing with our heads? Like, stay down or you'll get shocked. But someone touched it and yeah, it's real.
Yeah, I got hit a couple of times. Because also the straps are the parts of the straps that are hanging down are pretty wide, like far apart, so you can maneuver through them.
Now, after entrapment is when you run kind of around the lake or around part of the lake. And while you're on this run, this section of the run, you're going to pass where the cliff was for World's Toughest in Vegas the previous years. So
Correct.
I don't think it's going to be there, but if I got there and it was there, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. It's all speculation and rumors, and there's a lot of people that want it to be there and probably a lot of people that don't. But I think it would be pretty epic if it ended up being there for a 12-hour event. I think it would be, they could do it, but we'll just have to see.
It was really only open for 12 hours each World's Toughest. Like it would open at midnight and go till, the race ended at noon.
I think they can do it. It's just whether they want to.
So the course will take you, looks pretty similar to what the penalty was in past years for skipping. Like if you didn't want to do the cliff, it would send you around this way, like around the long way. And the 12th obstacle is Kiss of Mud.
So Kiss of Mud, traditionally in Vegas, is called Kiss of Rock because there's no mud to speak of. It's just dirt and gravel. But it is a section of a wood structure with barbed wire, and it's pretty low to the ground, so you just have to crawl underneath. Sometimes they put a pit in the middle and sometimes a hay bale or something to get over, but you have to crawl under and try not to get snagged by the barbed wire.
The 13th obstacle is Mud Mile.
So Mud Mile is a couple of pits that they fill with water and mounds on either side. And so you have to get in and then crawl up and over usually 5 or 6 mounds. Vegas, let's just make a decision right now. It's very sandy, and in the past we could have gotten the obstacle broken down pretty good. So let's all stay to the right, and we can dig some holes into those mounds of dirt.
Man,
so it'll be easier for everybody.
The last time I ran in Vegas, it was just that this is like the rocks are so brutal. It's just painful getting out of it sometimes.
Yeah. But from what I remember, it looks like it's in a little bit of a different spot than it's been in the past. But when they've built it there, you can break it down pretty easily to make some holes in there to make it easy for everybody.
We're going to need some help.
Everyone stay to the right.
Yeah, we're going to need some help from the Tough Mudder people on Saturday morning.
Yeah, Saturday morning classic participants, stay to the right.
The 14th obstacle is Black Widow.
The Black Widow is a new obstacle for this year. It was a World's Toughest Mudder last year. It's over a pool of water, and you have some slack lines that you walk on. And then there are crisscrossing lines all across it that you can use for balance. But they're not as tight as the ones you walk on. So if your balance isn't great, you can kind of fall in the water, but there's enough of the top lines to kind of brace yourself and hold on to and guide you along to get out of it.
The 15th obstacle of 21 is Berlin Walls.
Berlin Walls is just usually one or two rows of just I think, what is it, a 10-foot wall? And you just have to get up and over.
There's no real trick. If you can't reach the top, just wait for somebody and they'll give you a boost.
Yeah, there's usually a extra 2x4 you can kind of stand on, and I just get a shoulder and then put my foot on the side and swing a leg over. Try not to kick anybody in the face.
After Berlin Walls is another wall, skid marked.
The skid mark's pretty much just, same thing, another wall, but this one's slanted towards you. So, again, a lot of people can kind of get up and scramble over, muscle up. Or if you can't, just wait for a person, get a boost. Easy enough obstacles.
The 17th obstacle starts what's kind of an end gauntlet of obstacles. The 17th obstacle is Everest 2.0.
Everest 2.0 is your classic quarter pipe, and it's got that slick, the white board on it. 2.0 has the rounded top of it, so you can't just run up and grab the edge. The edge is a good 1.5 feet back, I think. Some people can get it up pretty good. Some people just need one hand. But as the night goes on, it definitely is a taxing obstacle and a daunting obstacle to try to get through over and over again.
There's a little, I don't know if it was controversy or just discussion about Everest recently. It's been a must-complete obstacle most of this year, where in previous years it was an obstacle that had a penalty option. If you didn't want to or if you couldn't get up, you could take a penalty. What do you think of the penalty versus no penalty discussion?
For me personally, it would be pretty hard to make it must complete for an entire race. I ended up cutting Dallas short because I knew I wouldn't be able to continue getting up the obstacle. And it's partially probably my own mental not wanting to have people help me get up all night. Like, I want to be able to just do it on my own or just with a couple of people helping me. But we have been lucky to have guys like Francis and Joe and all those guys that will stay there all night to help people up and destroy their shoulders. But it is hard. And if someone helps you up, you've got to make sure that you stay to help at least one or two other people up.
It's hard, but man, I remember when I first started Tough Mudder in 2011, 2012, there were people from Team HQ standing on top of the wall with bottles of Crisco, like dumping it on the wall, like to make it more slippery. So
yeah,
it's always been a hard obstacle.
Yeah, I've seen them with those pesticide sprayers with olive oil in it, just spraying it down. So it's doable. But for me, a penalty is helpful, and I don't care how long the penalty is. If I can't do an obstacle, I expect the penalty to be hard. So you give me a mile run. I don't, I'll do it. If I can't do an obstacle, I'll give it a shot. But if I can't do it, I'll take that penalty. It doesn't matter how hard it is.
And they said
I'll do another Arctic Enema.
they've said that the penalty for Everest will be brutal. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It will not, according to Kyle, it will not be must complete, but we will have a hard penalty.
Going to the last four obstacles, all clumped together. The 18th obstacle is Mudderhorn.
The Mudderhorn is our giant A-frame. So you got to get up to cargo net that's up and over the giant A-frame, and then there's another cargo net on your back. So again, watch out for things like your headlamp or any packs you have that'll get caught. You just got to climb up the cargo net up and over. Problem for some people that they don't like heights, but just go slow and steady and you'll make it over.
I got a tip from, I think it was from Javier Escobar, that when you go down the Mudderhorn, go down with your face facing, like with your back to the obstacle and your face in the safety net. And it sounded insane to me, right? That sounds crazy. Instead of lowering yourself down like on a ladder, your back is to the obstacle. But it is so much faster, and it is, I would say, almost as safe. Like it's probably a little bit more dangerous marginally, but you have your hands, you're holding onto the net, and your feet, you're just kind of like stepping down steps on the cargo net. And it sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the way I'm doing it now. Is I go down the backside face first, not face first, face forward.
I'll have to try it, but yeah, it sounds a little more sketchy.
It does. It sounds. I told him, I was like, that sounds ridiculous, and I tried it, and I was like, oh, this isn't bad at all.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give that one a shot on Saturday.
But anyone listening, you try that at your own risk. I'm not assuming any of your liability. Be careful. Know your limits. Don't be stupid. But that's just how it worked for me.
Yeah.
The 19th obstacle is the gauntlet.
The gauntlet is a 4-part obstacle. It's a balance beam into, is it Gutbuster? Is that what we're calling it, kind of? You have to stretch your body between 2 points, your feet on one end and your hands on another. So essentially just walking a body plank along. You get to the third part, and it is rings, so it's like Kong, and that has water underneath it. And then your last section, which also has water underneath it, is just the tip. So it is a series of grips that you have to get across.
Now, I wasn't in Dallas, but in Minnesota, you got to do each of the 4 sections, and at the end, which however many times you failed, so you could fail, up to 4, you had to do that many laps of the penalty lap. So if you made it through the first 2, but you failed the second 2, you have to do 2 penalty laps for the 2 you failed. How did they do it in Dallas?
That was what we were supposed to do, but sometimes, the communication isn't clear with volunteers. But that was, at the first 2, we were told we had to do, if we failed the 4 sections, we had to do 4 loops of the penalty.
But the volunteer communication there wasn't as clear?
No. When I went through it, when it was open, that they told me I only had to do 1.
Well, I am not the voice of Tough Mudder, but I'm just telling you that's probably what it's going to be. Is if you fail all 4 sections, you need to do 4. And it wasn't a long loop. It was long if you had to do it 4 times. But anyway, they'll tell you the official way in the start sheet, I'm sure.
No, yeah, I think that you should do as many penalty loops as you fail, like as many sections of the obstacle. I think that's fair.
The 20th obstacle is Swamp Stomp.
The Swamp Stomp generally just trudging through some muddy water, so I'm thinking they're going to put you through that little section of the lake in between 19 and 20. I mean, kind of like in past years where they've had, I don't remember what that wall was called, where we had to go up the wall from inside the lake.
Sure.
At Laurels, I don't remember what it's called. And then the Statue of Liberty one where we had to hold the torches. I think it's probably that little section of water. You probably have to just swim through it or something.
Yeah, no real trick. Just make sure if it's mushy, just make sure your shoes are laced tight.
Yeah, that's the only thing with Swamp Stomp. Sometimes you lose a shoe.
The final obstacle is electroshock therapy. What do you think about having electroshock on a toughest course?
It's never. I don't generally do it anymore for a regular Tough Mudder, but I went through it once in Dallas and just kind of wiggled through it, and the wind helped me out, so I didn't get shocked. In Dallas, they had I think generally always have a penalty option for electric obstacles because they don't want to make us get electrocuted in case you have something that prohibits you from doing an electric obstacle. But I know that they've had penalty loops, the sandbag carry. In Dallas specifically, they made you do 20 box jumps. So
The
I'm
penalty.
Sure that there will be
hang on.
a penalty.
The penalty for not doing electroshock at Toughest Mudder Dallas was 20 box jumps.
Yep.
Well, that's a new wrinkle.
Mhm. Yeah, that was a new one. And some people, because when you went through, even if you didn't get shocked, if you're able to maneuver through it, you got very muddy. Like it was pretty deep, wet mud. So some people just did the box jumps because they didn't want to get muddy.
Yeah, it does kind of stink, going into the pit. Like you want to sit down and rest for 5 minutes and keep being all nasty. But man, 20 box jumps and if you're going to run through electroshock therapy, if you have to do it, the best way to do it is wearing a full wetsuit with a hood and probably gloves on, leg mitts or something protecting your head as you run through. So,
yeah,
man, I don't know. I'll have to think about that for Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they have the penalty be. It could be something completely different. But in Dallas, it was 20 box jumps, which can take a while.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes if you get really lucky that there's a good strong breeze and it'll blow all the wires to the one side or the other and you can just kind of walk through on the other side. But
that's how it was for me.
that's rare. Like if you get that, take it every time.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, overall, looking at the course, what do you think? Toughest Mudder West?
I think it's a good course. I think it's not going to be easy. The hills are not as bad as some other venues, but there will be some good climbs for everybody. It looks pretty wet. It looks like we have quite a few water obstacles. So definitely come prepared. It is the desert, so it's unpredictable with the weather, but it's better to have a wetsuit and not need it than need it and not have it. So I think that rule will apply for this year because you're going to get wet a lot.
I'm definitely bringing my wetsuit. I'm looking at the weather. Saturday has a high of 77, low of 53, 10% chance of rain. Sunday, high of 74, low of 53, 0% chance of rain. 10-mile-an-hour winds both days. Both days, 19% humidity, which is kind of typical for Vegas, but it doesn't look like terrible weather.
No, it looks like pretty good weather, like low 50s. I think it got, the last year in Vegas, it got to like high 40s. And like I said, I run hot, but I was able to do the Worlds without a wetsuit that year. But I had it just in case I needed it. So definitely come prepared because you just want to be prepared for being cold. You don't want cold to be the thing that knocks you out of a race.
There would be nothing worse than having to quit a race because of gear and you have that gear at home in your garage somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something
definitely
worse. There's definitely worse things, but that'd be pretty bad too.
Yes, of course. No injuries for anybody.
Well, Jessica, any last thoughts on the Toughest Mudder course?
I'm hoping, I'm not running it, but I hope for everybody else that the clip is there.
Jessica,
that is complete speculation.
Jessica, how can people follow you on social media?
I am, Instagram is what I'm on most. It's Johnson_in_the_mud. So Johnson in the mud with all the underscores.
Jessica Johnson, thanks much.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Jessica Johnson for appearing on the show. Well done, Jessica. Don't forget to leave a review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I will read it. Do it now. That's your homework. Also homework. Leave a nomination for a member of the World's Toughest community. The link is in the show notes. You can find it on our social media or just find it on the website. Find it on World's Toughest community on Facebook. It can be one person. It can be 6 people. But leave a nomination. Let Team HQ know that we care. I will see you in Las Vegas. I will talk with you soon. Go spend time with someone you love.